Wow. I mean, it's almost impossible not to notice how fast AI is moving.
Absolutely. It's everywhere.
Every few weeks, it feels like something new pops up that just sounds like pure sci-fi from,
Right.
what, 5 years ago, maybe less.
Totally. And when people start talking about the serious side of it all, the big implication.
Geoffrey Hinton's name comes right up. Yeah. The Godfather of AI, they call him.
And he just got a Nobel Prize, which is pretty remarkable, actually, for his machine learning work.
Right. Incredible timing in a way.
And that prize, well, it really highlights just how long this has actually been developing, This current AI boom didn't just appear out of thin air.
Good point.
So for this deep dive, we really want to try and cut through some of that noise, maybe the hype.
Yeah, there's a lot of hype.
And focus specifically on what Hinton himself is saying now, especially the warnings he's been putting out there about where AI might be headed.
Okay. So what are we drawing on?
We're going to dig into a recent interview he gave, explore his journey a bit, what's got him concerned right now, why he's concerned, and the kind of future he sees possibly unfolding.
And maybe touch on what others in AI are thinking, too. See if they echo his concerns.
Yeah, exactly. We'll bring in some of those other prominent voices and their reactions to all this rapid change.
Okay, great. So the idea is to give you, the listener, a really clear, concise picture of what someone like Hinton thinks.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy who was deep in AI long before it was, mainstream.
It's decades before it was cool, yeah.
So understanding why he's concerned now, that feels pretty important.
Definitely. Crucial, even.
All right, let's unpack it then. So Hinton's background.
Yeah.
He's been at this for ages, right? This isn't some sudden panic.
Oh, absolutely not. Decades of work, long before it became this global thing. And it's interesting, he apparently dreamed of a Nobel for understanding the brain initially.
Oh.
But the prize he got last December was for his machine learning contributions, which kind of indirectly paved the way for these huge language models we're seeing now.
Right. And didn't he have some really early idea back in the 80s?
Yeah, 1986, this foundational concept, using a neural network to predict the next word in a sequence.
Sounds almost simple.
Yeah.
Deceptively simple.
Well, simple concept, maybe, but it turns out that's basically the engine behind these incredibly complex AIs we have today, the ones writing text, code, all sorts of things.
It's like the basic building block.
Pretty much. That 86 idea, still a key piece of how these large language models work.
Wow.
And what's really striking is how surprised Hinton himself is by the speed of it all.
He didn't see it coming this fast.
Apparently not. He said that even just 10 years ago, he didn't foresee this level of capability happening so quickly. His original time frame, he thought it would take, way longer than the 40-odd years it actually took for things to really explode.
Right, and that speed, that seems to be driving a lot of his worry now, doesn't it?
It really does. He uses that analogy, the cute tiger cub.
Ah, yes, I read that. Explain that a bit.
Well, the idea is it seems kind of harmless, maybe even appealing now, but it has the potential to grow into something really dangerous. And the key is the uncertainty about its future intentions. We just don't know.
That really gets the point across. And his specific worries.
He details a few. He's worried AI could make authoritarian governments even more oppressive.
Better surveillance, more control.
Exactly. And he thinks hackers could become way more effective using AI to launch much nastier attacks.
Okay, that's concerning.
And look, to show how real this feels to him, he's actually spread his own money across 3 different banks.
Why?
Because he's worried banks could become prime targets for AI-powered attacks.
Wow. Okay, that's very concrete. It's not just abstract fear.
Not at all. And he's even put a number on it, hasn't he?
Yeah, something like a 10 to 20% chance of AI, what was the phrase, taking over from humans.
Right, which is, a pretty sobering assessment from someone who helped build the foundations.
Absolutely. He said something like, people haven't understood what's coming.
That percentage, yeah, it just underscores how profoundly his view has shifted.
Right.
From architect to, well, deeply concerned observer.
So does he think we should just stop, pull the plug?
Interestingly, not necessarily. He seems skeptical that stopping development is even realistic at this point.
So what then?
His focus seems to be shifting more towards how do we design AI so that it, quote, never wants to take control. So it stays always benevolent. But, the huge question is, can we actually guarantee that? Is that even possible to engineer?
That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe trillion. And he's not alone in sounding the alarm, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned others.
No, definitely not alone. He points to other big figures, Like Sundar Pichai at Google,
Huh?
acknowledging potential harm if AI is rolled out wrongly. Elon Musk talks about, civilizational destruction.
Shark language.
Very. And even Sam Altman, back when he was earlier at OpenAI, apparently said something about AI most likely sort of leading to the end of the world.
Wow. That's quite a consensus of concern, even if they frame it differently from the people actually building this stuff.
It really is. And Hinton adds another layer to this worry.
Which is?
The competition. The intense race between the big tech companies and also, with China.
Ah, the geopolitical angle.
Right. He's worried this race makes companies lobby against strong AI safety rules because they want those short-term profits.
Putting everyone else at risk in the process.
That's his fear. Potentially putting all of humanity at risk.
And he's right that there isn't much actual regulation in place yet, is there?
Very little. That's truly significant, no. It feels like the tech is just sprinting ahead and the rules are struggling to even get off the starting blocks.
Yeah, that gap seems really dangerous.
It's a major concern. And, looking at Hinton's history, this critical stance, it sort of fits. He's always been a bit of an independent thinker, hasn't he?
How so?
Well, for example, he moved to Canada way back when, partly because U.S. funding for AI was so tied up with the military, the Defense Department.
Okay, taking a stance early on.
Yeah. And he spent decades working on neural networks when, frankly, a lot of the field kind of laughed at them, thought they were a dead end.
So he's used to going against the grain.
Totally. He apparently has this, deep belief that everybody else could be doing things wrong and you could figure out how to do them right.
That takes some conviction? Wonder where that comes from.
Well, it's interesting. His family background is pretty remarkable. His dad was an entomologist.
The scientist.
Yeah. And his ancestors include George Boole of Boolean algebra, fundamental for computing.
Right.
And George Everest, the surveyor, Mount Everest.
No kidding. So science, logic, measuring the world. It's in blood, maybe.
You could almost see it that way, couldn't you? Like inheriting this curious, maybe mechanic's mind, wanting to figure things out.
Now he likes tinkering.
Yeah.
Getting his hands dirty with the models.
Yeah, he talks about really enjoying just playing with the neural net model, tweaking them to see how they behave. He noted that wasn't always common. Others maybe didn't do that as much.
Interesting. And didn't he mentor Ilya Sutskever, the OpenAI guy?
That's right. Sutskever, who became chief scientist at OpenAI. Hinton mentored him. Apparently, in the early days, they'd just watch the AI learn and make little bets on how well it would do. Very hands-on.
That must have been fascinating, watching it learn back then.
Incredible, I imagine. And of course, Sutskever was later central to that whole drama around Sam Altman's brief ousting at OpenAI.
Right, reportedly over safety concerns. Sutskever pushing for more caution.
That was the narrative, yeah. Disagreements about the pace versus safety. Hinton initially said he was proud of Sutskever for taking that stand, but then later called it very naive.
Naive? Why?
Because of the practicalities, the money. Trying to push Altman out like that had huge financial implications for employees with OpenAI stock, making it almost impossible to succeed.
Ah, the messy reality of business and ethics colliding.
Exactly. And Sutskever did end up leaving OpenAI after Altman came back.
It really just highlights the massive stakes, doesn't it? Ethically, financially.
Huge stakes. And Hinton hasn't shied away from criticizing the big companies either. Even Google, where he worked for years.
What did he say about them?
He expressed sort of reluctant disappointment that Google seemed to be backing away from earlier promises about not using AI for military purposes.
And he mentioned others, too.
Yeah, he included Meta, Facebook's parent company, and Elon Musk's XAI in his list of companies maybe racing ahead too fast.
So what's his proposed solution for these companies? Just slow down.
Well, partly, but he also talks resource allocation. He suggests that a really significant chunk, maybe like a third of their massive computing resources should be dedicated purely to safety research.
A third. That's a lot of compute power.
A huge amount. And he says right now, the amount they spend on safety is much, much less than that.
Do the companies agree?
Well, publicly, the AI labs say safety is vital. They support regulation in general. But Hinton points out, and others have too, that they've mostly pushed back against specific regulations when they've been proposed.
Sounds familiar. Okay, so wrapping up Hinton's current view, even as he's issuing these stark warnings, does he fully internalize it?
That's a fascinating question. He actually admits it's very hard to take it seriously on a gut level.
Even for him.
Even for him, the idea that everything might totally change so drastically so soon, it's almost too big to fully grasp emotionally, even when you understand it intellectually.
That's quite telling, isn't it? If even the Godfather of AI struggles to really feel the scale of what he's predicting.
It really is. And just to circle back on a practical concern, while the labs didn't give specific numbers on safety compute when asked, they generally affirmed its importance. But Hinton's worry about banks remains a specific, tangible fear he mentioned.
Right, the banks as targets. And so if we boil it down, Hinton, a true AI pioneer, is now sounding a major alarm. Key takeaways are AI is moving incredibly fast.
Astonishingly fast.
There are serious risks, misuse by bad actors, potential loss of human control.
Yep, those are the big ones he highlights.
And we desperately need to focus on safety and likely regulation, but the current competitive race makes that really hard.
That sums it up pretty well. It's a complex picture, but his message is pretty clear. Caution is urgently needed.
So hopefully this deep dive into Hinton's thinking and touching on those other voices gives you a clearer picture of these critical arguments.
Yeah, the goal was to pull out those key insights, those aha moments, without getting bogged down in, too much jargon, just the core perspective from a crucial figure.
Okay, so let's leave our listeners with something to chew on. Here's a final thought. Given everything we've just discussed, the speed, the potential, the warnings from people like Hinton, what do you think are the absolute most critical questions we as a society need to be asking ourselves right now to navigate this AI revolution responsibly?
That's the big question, isn't it? It's a conversation that's really only just getting started, and everyone needs to be part of it.